Hi there, I'm B. I'm a writer and a dreamer. I have fun making these videos, and it would be great if you can show your support by liking our videos, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
The Skrulls didn't send a warship for Bruce Banner. No, that would have been too dignified for what they thought was a low-risk acquisition. They sent a science vessel, a bright green, dome-headed, needle-spined cruise liner of smugness, brimming with geneticists, biochemists, and a disturbingly enthusiastic catering crew. The Skrull High Science Council called it Operation Big Green Payday, which already tells you they didn't really understand what they were getting into. The plan was simple. Snatch Banner, crack him open like a cosmic crab leg, and scoop out the secret sauce that let a fragile human turn into a building-demolishing rage god. Then they distill it, mass-produce it, and crown themselves the most adaptable, durable, and terrifying shape-shifting species in the galaxy. They already thought they were that. Of course, this would just be the ceremonial confirmation. Banner was in the middle of eating a turkey sandwich when a Skrull boarding party hit his safe house. No roaring, no table flipping, no pants-ripping transformation. Just Bruce, blinking, holding a sandwich in one hand, napkin in the other. "Gentlemen," he said mildly, "can I finish lunch?" The Skrull commander, a pale green specimen with cheek ridges sharp enough to julienne vegetables, snorted. "Hulk not hungry?" Banner shrugged. "I'm good." That was the first red flag the Skrulls ignored. When your supposed rage beast target agrees to be abducted without breaking your face, you should start rethinking your life choices. Instead, they just cuffed him with enough restraints to hold a moon whale and beamed him up like a prize turkey. The Skrull science vessel Vigilant Curiosity was less evil lair and more floating science fare. Hallways were plastered with genetic sequences scrolling in neon, staff bustled around in immaculate lab robes, and every single one of them gave Bruce the same look. "We're about to own you at biology." They led him past containment cells filled with the galaxy's other special finds. A crystalline arthropod capable of surviving inside stars. A swamp-born predator that could rewire its prey's nervous system in seconds. A telepathic spore cluster that had once convinced an entire planetary senate to outlaw walking. Banner didn't even blink. He took it all in, quiet as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. The Skrulls assumed this was fear. It was not fear. It was data collection. In the ship's primary bioresearch bay, the Skrull lead scientist, a lanky creature named Dravek, smiled with far too many teeth. "Dr. Banner," he began, "we are honored to study you. Your condition is of interest to the Empire." Bruce adjusted his glasses and looked around the sterile, glowing lab. "Study me all you want. You might even learn something," he said, sitting down on the cold examination slab like it was a hotel bed. Dravek and his team exchanged puzzled glances. Most prisoners screamed, begged, or at least spit in their faces. Banner just consented. "Do you not fear what we will do?" Dravek asked, brow ridges twitching. "Oh, I fear plenty," Bruce said evenly. "But I'm also curious. And I do my best work when I'm curious." Another red flag. Ignored. They started simple. Tissue samples, gamma exposure tests, neural scans. Banner didn't resist. He even gave notes. "Your centrifuge is miscalibrated. That dosage won't tell you anything useful. You're going to need a triple redundant quantum stabilizer if you want that to not explode in your faces." Half the time, the Skrull scientists listened, and Banner's suggestions saved weeks of work. The other half, they ignored him, and the resulting mess ended up as a smoking crater in Lab Bay 4. The Skrulls chalked it up to minor setbacks. Banner chalked it up to a learning opportunity for him. The questions circled the ship like an unflushed rumor. They kept waiting for the trigger. Pain, humiliation, emotional stress. Instead, Banner meditated through injections that would have liquefied lesser beings. He calmly discussed statistical models, while Skrull surgeons sliced in a muscle tissue that should have been impervious. He asked for deeper scans. One particularly baffled technician whispered, What if he can't Hulk out anymore?" Banner overheard. He didn't correct him. Why spoil the surprise? While they congratulated themselves for having tamed the beast, Banner was doing what Banner did best, running the long con of science. He studied their equipment, memorized their procedures, noted the way Skrull DNA resisted certain mutagens, and which mutagens made it twitch. Every time they thought they'd mapped a section of his genome, Banner fed them just enough correct data to keep them invested, while embedding little errors that would throw their results off by a factor of exactly 0.73, harmless to him, devastating to them later. And the missing lab equipment? Let's just say certain microscopes and sequencing chips were finding their way into a personal project Banner was building in the corner of his cell. The guards thought it was some kind of human stress ritual. It was not. Weeks turned into months. Dravek presented progress reports to the High Science Council, each one full of impressive graphs and jargon-heavy sentences like, "Subject displays unprecedented genetic stability under gamma-saturated replication vectors." Translation: "We've poked him a lot, and he's not dead yet." The council was ecstatic. They envisioned an army of Skrull Hulks, shapeshifters with limitless strength, durability, and adaptability. Dravek got a promotion. The ship got more funding. Banner got better food. Everyone was winning. Well, everyone thought they were winning. Late at night, when the lab's powered down to minimal lighting, Banner sat in his containment cell, cross-legged, eyes closed, running calculations in his head. How much Skrull genetic architecture could the Hulk protocol integrate without destabilizing? How to merge their adaptive cellular matrices with gamma-enhanced regenerative factors. And, most importantly, how to do it in a way that required no anger at all. He was building something new, not green, not entirely human. The Skrulls had given him the one thing Earth never could: months of uninterrupted research time in a full lab of alien tech. On the 97th day of his captivity, Banner was strapped into a high-resonance genomic imager. Dravek grinned, convinced he was hours away from cracking the Hulk code. "Dr. Banner," he said smugly, "when this is over, you will have contributed to the ascension of the Skrull race." Bruce looked him dead in the eye. "Yeah," he said softly, almost kindly. "I know." No one in the room noticed the faint, alien green shimmer under his skin. Yet, the Skrulls had a saying, loosely translated as, "Knowledge is the highest form of power." After 3 months with Bruce Banner, they were about to add a footnote. "Unless the knowledge is about you, in which case it's a weapon." The experiments became bolder. They were past poking and scanning. Now they were deep diving into his cells like thrill seekers spelunking an uncharted cave system. Only this cave system had a nuclear warhead, a self-repair protocol, and the personality of a passive-aggressive professor who was letting them hang themselves. They injected him with Skrull mutagens designed to activate latent Hulk pathways. Banner watched the greenish fluid slide into his veins like a wine critic evaluating a bad vintage. "That's cute," he murmured, which is not what you want your subject to say when you're hoping for a glorious, world-ending transformation. They tried rapid tissue replacement, splicing in Skrull adaptive organelles to improve his baseline resilience. Banner pretended to nap through the procedure. By the time they checked their readings, the Skrull organelles had already been reprogrammed into tiny cellular kamikazes, dutifully reporting back to Banner's nervous system like spy drones. The Skrulls noted unexpected mutations. Bruce noted that Skrull immune systems were basically a sieve with pretensions. They brought in the Empire's best neural mapping specialists to decode the gamma trigger. Banner gave them full cooperation, lying perfectly still under the brainwave scanners, eyes half-lidded. They didn't realize until much later that his alpha, beta, and gamma waves had been subtly guiding their scanning patterns, feeding them exactly the data he wanted them to see. Like handing a toddler a picture book while you rewire the house. One technician, young, eager, painfully naive, asked him mid-session, "Why do you not fight back?" Banner smiled faintly. "Because I'm here to learn," he said. The kid walked away feeling oddly unsettled, like a rabbit that just realized the wolf was asking about its burrow for research purposes. The missing equipment problem escalated. At first, it was small things, tools, microchips, protein sequencers. The security chief thought the staff were stealing them for personal projects. Then full racks of sequencing gels vanished. A cryogenic stasis unit went missing from the main biostorage. No alarms tripped. No cameras caught anything. The ship's AI logged routine maintenance for each disappearance. No one connected the dots that the only routine was the day Bruce had unsupervised downtime. In the mess hall, Skrull scientists boasted about their breakthroughs. "We've mapped over 85% of the human genome," one said proudly, biting into something that looked suspiciously like an iridescent slug. Banner, at the next table, politely corrected him. "Actually, you've mapped about 60%. The rest is misaligned because your base pair indexing is designed for triploid species." The Skrull blinked, asked how he knew that. Bruce just smiled and went back to eating his depressingly gray protein paste. They started confiding in him, not out of trust, but because the best scientists love an audience. They bragged about Skrull resistance to mutagenic degradation, their multi-layered genome, their evolutionary supremacy. Bruce filed every word away. He asked questions no prisoner should be asking. How do your cells decide which traits to express? What's the metabolic cost of shapeshifting? Do you have trouble integrating foreign mitochondria? They answered, thinking he was impressed. He was, but not in the way they hoped. They didn't notice the side effects creeping in. A senior geneticist began suffering night sweats and nausea. Another had recurring hallucinations, visions of green energy fractals devouring cities. One lab assistant woke up screaming in a language she didn't know, drawing complex equations in the air with her fingers. MedScans showed nothing, but Banner noticed the tremors in their hands, the flickers of confusion when they looked in mirrors. His little kamikaze organelles were already networking, experimenting, whispering to their new hosts. It became a game for him. They tried to stress him into hulking out, electrical shocks, emotional manipulation, gamma saturation fields, while he tested how many subtle alterations he could push into their physiology before they realized he was the one doing the experimenting. He found Skrull neural pathways could be looped into feedback spirals that cause selective memory gaps. Useful. He discovered their muscle tissue could be taught to store kinetic potential far beyond natural capacity, until it decided to release all at once, usually while they were holding something fragile. Hilarious. The paranoia started small. A guard swore Banner's skin looked slightly green one day. Another reported hearing his voice over the intercom at 0300 hours, even though Banner was asleep in his cell. Dravek dismissed these as stress-induced errors. After all, they had him restrained, monitored, contained. The idea that their specimen was rewriting them was laughable. Banner, of course, laughed too, quietly to himself, because he knew what was coming. It happened in the 6th month. They brought him into the primary sequencing lab to run the final comparative analysis between Skrull DNA and his own. The lead geneticist explained, with the smug patience of someone teaching a child, that they were narrowing in on the precise genetic factor that made him immune to their shape-shifting. Once we understand this, the scientists said, we will integrate it. We will be unstoppable. Banner nodded thoughtfully. That's good, he said. I've been wondering the same thing. The Skrull chuckled, clearly believing they'd put him in his place. Banner tilted his head. Do you know what I've found so far? The room fell quiet. Even the lab equipment seemed to hum less loudly. You're resistant to transformation because your genome locks out certain catalytic processes. It's like a door with a very clever lock. Took me a while to figure it out. The Skrull blinked, thrown off by the phrasing. You figured it out? Banner's eyes were calm. Too calm. Oh, sure. I've been working on it since day 3. I had to get your sequencing methods right first. Yours are sloppy, by the way. But once I understood the lock, the key was easy. No one spoke. I've been testing it. He continued conversationally. On you. There was a shuffle of movement in the back of the lab. Someone dropped a data slate. One of the younger scientists suddenly looked pale, well, paler. You're going to start noticing changes soon, Bruce said, sliding off the examination table like he was just stretching his legs. Little ones at first. Hair, texture, reflex delays, new cravings. He smiled faintly. And then, one day, you'll look in the mirror, and you won't see Skrull anymore. A guard reached for his weapon. Banner didn't flinch. I'm still learning, he said mildly. But I think I've almost got it. The integration. The perfect balance between your adaptability and my upgrades. The lead geneticist's voice cracked. Upgrades? Bruce adjusted his glasses. Yeah, because the thing about me? His tone was flat, clinical, final. I don't just change when I'm angry. He let the silence stretch, watched their minds scramble to find a foothold. Then he looked directly at Dravek and said, almost gently, "You wanted to know what makes me different. Now I know what makes you different, and I'm making it mine." The temperature in the room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. The next day, 3 more pieces of critical lab equipment went missing. 2 scientists requested transfer to other ships. 1 guard resigned, citing irreversible bad vibes. Banner kept smiling, because now the game was no longer about learning their biology. It was about deciding when to stop being human. It began without alarms. No power surges, no bulkhead breaches, no frantic calls to security. Just Bruce Banner, sitting quietly in his cell, eyes open, watching the ship ceiling like it had finally told him something interesting. The guard on duty barely glanced at him. Banner had been like this before. Long silences, deep thought, always in control. The Skrulls had learned not to poke too hard. A docile specimen was easier to study than a raging one. At 0900 hours, the cell door cycled open on its own. No access code entered. No override. The ship's AI flagged it as authorized movement. The guard frowned, called the bridge. The bridge swore no clearance had been given. When the guard turned back, Banner was standing just outside the cell, stretching his arms like he'd just woken from a good nap. "Morning," he said, as if they were old friends meeting in a coffee shop. The guard aimed his weapon. Banner tilted his head, and the weapon dissolved in the guard's hands. Not melted, not phased, just reduced to powder, the particles hanging in the air for a heartbeat before drifting to the floor. "I've been thinking," Bruce said conversationally, stepping past the stunned guard. "All this time, you've been trying to figure out how to turn me into you. Funny thing is," he flexed his hand, skin rippling faintly between human tones and something greener, stranger, more fluid. "I figure out how to turn me into you." He didn't sprint, didn't roar. He walked through the corridors like he belonged there, and in a way he now did. Doors slid open before him without any access input. Security cameras blinked and shut down as he passed. A lab tech rounded the corner, froze, and tried to shapeshift into something intimidating. His face flickered halfway through the transformation, froze, then slowly reconfigured into Bruce's face. "You're welcome," Bruce told him, brushing past. By the time the bridge caught on, he was already there. The captain ordered the security bulkhead sealed. They sealed, locking the captain in with him. Banner strolled toward the command chair, hands in his pockets. "You've been generous," he said mildly. "Months of data, samples, exposure to your most advanced tech. And in return, I've given you a gift, adaptation without instability. No more wasting energy on constant shape-shifting. No more immunological breakdowns from foreign tissue." The captain reached for the ship's self-destruct console. His hand stopped halfway, trembling. Slowly, his skin began to change, less Skrull green, more something else. Something smoother, stronger. His breathing grew ragged. "What did you do?" "I integrated us," Bruce said. "Improve the baseline. Fix the bugs. Remove the redundancies." He smiled faintly. "You're going to thank me eventually." The ship's AI chimed in, voice distorted. New primary user detected. Identity, Dr. Bruce Banner. Panic spread through the crew. Some tried to run, their legs locked mid-stride. Others reached for weapons. Their hands wouldn't respond. Bruce's upgrades weren't just genetic, they were systemic. The ship obeyed him now. The crew obeyed him, whether they wanted to or not. "I never needed to be angry," Bruce said, pacing the bridge. "I just needed time, and you gave me so much of it." A young officer near the communications console tried to broadcast a distress call. Her voice faltered as her jaw shifted slightly, her eyes flickering between Skrull yellow and Banner's calm brown. "Please," she whispered, "stop." He looked at her, and for a moment, there was something almost gentle in his expression. "I'm stopping. This is the most stopped I've ever been. This isn't rage. This is precision." The captain lunged a last desperate attack, and Banner caught him effortlessly, one hand gripping his uniform. The green shimmer spread from Bruce's palm into the captain's body, racing along veins like liquid light. The captain's scream cut off as his shape stabilized into something neither human nor Skrull. Banner lowered him into the command chair. There, perfect balance. No wasted energy. Stronger, faster, smarter. You'll live longer too. No need to thank me now. He turned to the rest of the crew. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to upgrade you. You've been limited by tradition, by biology, by arrogance. I've removed those limits. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared at the man who was no longer entirely man. Bruce walked to the viewport, looking out at the starfield. You call me a specimen, an anomaly, a problem to solve. But I was always the solution. You just didn't realize the problem was you. He tapped the glass lightly. The ship shuddered. Far off in the distance, another Skrull vessel, one of their fast-response escorts, folded in on itself like paper, its reactor core imploding into a singularity no bigger than a coin. I'm calm, he said, almost to himself. I'm in control. And now, I am Skrull. He didn't roar. He didn't smash. He simply smiled, and the galaxy began to feel very, very small. The first world fell without a single shot fired. The Skrull Council called it an internal systems malfunction. Entire planetary defense grids went offline at the exact same moment Bruce Banner's newly reclassified flagship drifted into orbit. Orbital cannons refused to lock onto his vessel. The ground forces' comms rerouted to empty channels, every order echoing into dead air. When Banner descended, it wasn't in a warship. It was in a shuttle, alone, calm, wearing a neatly pressed lab coat, as if he'd come to conduct a site inspection. The guards who confronted him didn't realize something was wrong until their hands refused to raise their weapons. Muscles simply wouldn't listen. You've been preloaded, Bruce explained, as if discussing a software patch. Upgrades for all security personnel. You'll find your cardiovascular efficiency has increased by 20%. Also, you can't shoot me anymore. The entire garrison stood frozen, torn between fear and the alien, unfamiliar sensation of feeling better. Everywhere he went, the story repeated. Military leaders locked in their own war rooms, their bodies adjusting to a physiology they no longer fully recognized. Politicians stumbling mid-speech as their voices deepened or sharpened into a more efficient register. Children waking up to find their eyesight corrected and their bones strengthened. Banner wasn't conquering. He was editing. The Skrull news networks, ever eager to spin disaster into opportunity, tried to frame it as a bold, empire-wide genetic enhancement program. But they couldn't control the footage leaking from worlds Bruce visited. The same man, the same calm walk, the same slight green shimmer under his skin, touching people, speaking softly, and leaving behind citizens who looked the same but weren't. He dismantled the war fleets next. No massive battles. No grand strategy, just ships going dark, crews locked out of their own systems, weapons folding into inert alloys before they could fire. Sometimes he would leave a vessel intact, just to see how long it took for the crew to realize they'd been upgraded. The smarter ones didn't fight. The slower ones discovered their ships, now answered to a voice that wasn't theirs. In the High Council chamber, paranoia bloomed like rot. They rotated meeting locations daily. They brought in triple-verified food tasters. They stripped every piece of tech from their rooms before convening. And yet, one by one, council members started showing subtle changes, skin tone shifting, bone ridges smoothing, reflexes sharpening. We have to stop him, one counselor whispered. You are him, another replied, her voice trembling. You just haven't accepted it yet. Galactic allies began calling in. The crew wanted to know why Skrull fleets were suddenly abandoning border disputes. The Shi'ar demanded an explanation for why Skrull diplomats now spoke in a measured, precise tone and refused to lie. The Badoon just asked if whatever was happening could be made to happen to them too. Banner didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for treaties. He didn't make demands. Every move was surgical, planet by planet, system by system, converting instead of conquering. It was quiet, relentless, inevitable. 1 month into the campaign, the Skrull homeworld made its final broadcast. It wasn't a declaration of war or surrender. It was a plea. To any allies who can hear this, we require immediate assistance. This man, this human, he is not here to destroy us. He is here to perfect us, and it will not stop with us. Bruce watched the broadcast from the command deck, sipping tea. They make it sound so sinister, he said to no one in particular. It's just optimization. From there, resistance collapsed. He walked into their research citadels, dismantled centuries-old projects in minutes, and rebuilt them in hours. Always better, always more efficient, always his. And when the last holdouts were cornered, they found themselves incapable of pulling the trigger. Not because they didn't want to, but because they'd already been rewritten not to. By the time the Empire realized what had happened, there was no Skrull Empire anymore. There was a single unified biology, a network of minds and bodies operating with the cold precision of Banner's design. When he addressed them for the first time as their leader wasn't the right word. Creator, perhaps. He stood at the center of the council hall, looking out over faces that were no longer purely Skrull. You call me a specimen. You call me a weapon. You were wrong on both counts. I'm a next version of you. The best version. And I did it without war, without bloodshed, without anger. He let the words sink in. Now we begin the real work. No applause. No cheering. Just silence and a growing awareness among every person present that they were his down to the last cell. The galaxy took notice. And Earth? Earth didn't know yet. The message to Earth didn't come through a galactic news feed or intercepted transmission. It came as a private video file, time-stamped and authenticated, sent simultaneously to the United Nations Sword, the Avengers, and a scattering of personal contacts Banner still had on Earth, people who thought they'd never see him again. It opened on Bruce, standing in what looked like a lab, except the lab was a cathedral of alien architecture. Towering columns of green-black alloy pulsed faintly, as if alive. The walls shifted subtly, adapting to the sound of his voice. Hi, he began, like it was a casual check-in from a friend abroad. I know you've probably heard things, rumors about me and the Skrulls. They're mostly true. Actually, they're all true. He walked slowly toward the camera, calm and deliberate, the faint green shimmer in his skin more pronounced now, like it wasn't hiding anymore. I've spent the last few months working with them. Not for them, not against them, with them, and I learn a lot. They're adaptable, intelligent, resourceful, but they were wasting all that potential. So I fixed them. Cut to quick flashes, Skrull cities humming with new efficiency, fleets operating with flawless coordination, civilians moving with a strange unity of purpose. No chaos, no hunger, no crime, and no one who looked entirely Skrull anymore. Bruce's voice continued over the images. I didn't conquer them. I improved them. They're stronger now, healthier, smarter. They'll live longer, and they'll never go back to what they were. The footage cut back to him. His eyes were steady, unreadable. And now, I'm coming home. In New York, Sword analysts froze the footage there, running biometric comparisons. Every test said Bruce Banner. Every test also said not entirely human. In Wakanda, Shuri stared at the display, muttering, that's not just him. That's him plus an entire genetic library. In deep space, Carol Danvers killed her comms mid-broadcast. Oh no, she said quietly. Bruce leaned in slightly, as if speaking to someone he knew was listening very carefully. This isn't a threat. I'm not angry. I'm not even disappointed. I just see what you could be. You've got so much potential, and you're using it to argue over borders and pollute your oceans. I can help with that. He straightened, clasping his hands behind his back. The Skrulls resisted at first. Everyone resists at first. But then they realized I wasn't taking anything away. I was giving them more. You'll see. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what's next. The camera zoomed out slightly, revealing the backdrop beyond the lab. A massive hangar filled with ships that didn't look entirely Skrull or entirely human, but something in between. The air shimmered faintly with whatever energy powered them. Earth is my home, and I want it to be the best version of itself. You're next. The transmission ended. No threats. No countdowns. No ultimatums. Just inevitability. Across the galaxy, the newly remade Skrull worlds prepared their fleets, not for war, but for integration. They moved with quiet, terrifying precision, not a soldier among them needing orders. On Earth, government scrambled. Contingency plans were dusted off. Gamma weapon prototypes were rushed into production. The Avengers argued about whether they could stop him. None of them said it out loud, but all of them were thinking the same thing. If this wasn't the Hulk anymore, if this was Banner with all the power and none of the anger, how do you even fight that? Up in orbit, the first of the hybrid ships appeared, holding position just outside weapon range. Not attacking, waiting. On board the lead vessel, Bruce watched the planet spin below. His reflection in the viewport flickered between human and something else. He smiled faintly. Let's get started. And somewhere deep in the Skrull neural network that now spanned half the galaxy, billions of upgraded minds turned their attention toward one small blue world, ready for its final experiment. Because sometimes the most terrifying invasion isn't one that wants to destroy you. It's one that wants to make you better.